Appreciate everybody's attendance here today. Joining us up front, we have Steve Letarte, crew chief of the number 88. Dale Earnhardt Jr., driver of the number 88. Team owner Rick Hendrick. And Dr. Jerry Petty, neurosurgeon. This time I'm going to call on Dale Earnhardt Jr., who has some things he'd like to share with everyone, and then we'll open it up for questions. We have a couple of mic holders. We'll get to as many questions as we can, but I ask, please, one question per try, okay? Go ahead, Dale.
Thank you. I guess I'll just start out with where this all kind of began. We had a test at Kansas about 5 weeks ago, and we blew a right front tire going into turn one, and I remember everything about that accident, everything after that accident, but I knew that I didn't feel, you know your body and you know how your mind works, and I knew something was just not quite right. But I decided to, just try to push through and work through it. I'd had concussions before and knew exactly kind of what I was dealing with, so I felt pretty good after a week or two, and definitely 80–90% by the time the chase started, and by the time we got to Talladega I felt 100%, felt really good. And in the accident at the end of that race, I was hit in the left rear quarter panel, and it was a sort of a odd kind of a collision where the car spun around really quick and just sort of disoriented me, and I knew that I'd sort of regressed and been, had a bit of a setback, and knew, again, you know how your body is, and you know when something's not quite right, and I knew as soon as it happened that I had, re-injured myself, if, for lack of a better way to describe it. And, it didn't feel, it wasn't nothing, it was not even half of the impact that I had at Kansas, but it was enough to, cause me some concern. So, I went a couple days wondering, how I would, my body would react, and sort of waiting for it to process what was happening. And about Wednesday, I was still having some headaches. That was really the only symptoms that I was having, was the headaches. So I took it upon myself to, I contacted my sister, and we talked about seeing a neurosurgeon, and we ended up getting steered toward Dr. Petty and met with him, ran through a couple tests, everything was checking out, did an MRI, everything looked good there, but I was really honest with him about how I felt, and the whole, honest with him about the whole process from Kansas all the way on, and he spent the night thinking about what we discussed and everything that we did on Wednesday, and couldn't clear me to race this weekend. So I trust his opinion. That's why I went to see him. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and has helped me through a lot of injuries before. So I believe when he tells me I don't need to be in the car and I need to take a couple weeks off, that's what I need to do. So that's pretty much the extent of it. I got a lot of support from my team. I'm excited about their opportunities the next couple weeks with Regan, and just looking forward to getting this cleared up and get back in the car as soon as I can, so I can get back to working with my team and get back to competing on Sundays.
Thank you, Dale. We'll take questions now. Please raise your hand. Identify yourself by your affiliation. Let's start here with Jenna, and then we'll go to Claire.
Jenna Fryer, AP. Dale, did you see anyone for the Kansas the issues you had at Kansas. And if you knew immediately that something was off on Sunday, why did you wait until Wednesday?
No, I didn't see anybody at Kansas. I regret not seeing somebody after that happened. I was stubborn, and like I'd had concussions before, and knew what I was, thought I knew what I was dealing with, and felt like, that I was capable of doing my job. And I had called Steve. We talked about how I was feeling, and I told him that I really, I felt pretty good, but I really wouldn't know if I would be able to compete until I got into the car. When you have a concussion, the symptoms can be really mild, and then they'll typically go away after a couple days, and you feel perfectly normal. But then when you get in a car and you go around the track at a high rate of speed, you start to understand that some things just aren't quite where they need to be, and some reactions just aren't as sharp. And you really can't get a measurement of that until you're in the car. You can't even, there's just no way of knowing until you can drive. And I wasn't willing to, with the chase coming up, I didn't know how difficult, if I was to volunteer myself to medical attention and be removed from the car, I didn't know how difficult it'd be to get back in. And but I was honest with Steve and told Steve, I said, when we get to Atlanta, and if I don't feel good, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that we need to have something in as a backup plan for me to get out of the car. I wasn't going to drive the car if I felt like I was gonna deal my crew chief and my team a shorthand that weekend. But and that's kind of the same reason I waited till Wednesday. It was the shot at Kansas was, I think we got the data, but it was around 40 G's, and the shot at Talladega was only 20 G's. It wasn't really that big of a wreck, and the fact that I felt the way I did was what concerned me after the accident at Talladega, because it wasn't that hard of a hit. So I wanted to process how I felt over a couple days, and we went to the doctor Tuesday, actually. So anyways, we I just wanted to process what was happening, and I knew having them two concussions back to back was not a good thing. So I needed to go see somebody regardless of whether I wanted to get out of the car or not. So just for my own well-being, I couldn't, if I didn't need to go out and get in a race car and go get hit again, I needed somebody to tell me that, because I was going to have a hard time making that decision for myself, because I feel perfectly fine, but I don't want to keep getting hit in the head.
Let's go with Claire B., and then we'll go to Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Because you drove your car away at Talladega, you weren't required to go to the care center. We've come a long way from where drivers would lie and not say that they had concussions, or Ricky Rudd taped his eyes open. But what do you feel about concussions in general? And do you think you wouldn't have made the decision yourself to have it checked out had you not, because you were able to drive your car away at Talladega?
I just feel like that if you have more than one in a small period of time, you need to take that quite seriously. That's how, I had the one in Kansas was really bad, and then to get shaken up so quickly over something so kind of trivial, that accident was. I've been through tons of last lap wrecks at Daytona and Talladega, and that one shook me up, and I just thought, maybe I should take this seriously.
Let's go to Bob, and then we'll go to Marty. Go ahead, Bob Pockris.
Bob Pockris, Sporting News. For Dr. Petty, Dale's been saying that he kind of knows what he's dealing with as far as concussions. What is he dealing with, and what does he need to do to be cleared to race?
So far, what we've done is Dale, the first thing he had was an impact test, which is a test that we've been using more and more with drivers. His exam was entirely normal, except that his main thing we were seeing for were symptoms, or he had very few signs at that time. In other words, his his neurological exam was normal. We wanted to get an MRI scan, and we did an MRI the following morning, a special MRI that we had to wait a while to get because we wanted to get a special method they have of looking for previous injuries and so forth. That was entirely normal. It's just, there's nothing, it was the whole, and that was very encouraging. Then we talked to Dale, and he, I couldn't give you a better history than he just did. He had no amnesia on either side of either of the incidents, which is very important. And I think that there's every reason to expect that what we'll do now is we want him to have 4 or 5 days after he has no headache, and then we'll give him some sort of test, like to get his pulse rate up, see if we can provoke a headache. And then if we can't, we'll let him go out and maybe drive a lap or two and see how that goes. And if that goes well, we'll probably clear him to race.
Okay, let's go with Marty. Let's go with Nate, and then Joe Menzer. Go.
This is for Mr. Hendrick, Marty Smith, ESPN. Mr. Hendrick, you've been racing a long time, and you've done it with a whole lot of different men. What level of courage does it take for someone to take it upon themselves at the highest level when all of them talk all the time about how terrified they are that somebody's going to take their wheels, for him to walk in and admit that he had this pain?
Well, I think that's one thing everybody admires about Dale is how honest and upfront he is. He cares a lot about the team, his fans, and the sport in general. And but when he knew that there was something not right, he went to see Dr. Petty here, and you know, I admire him. I think a lot of guys would try to play hurt, but when the doctor tells you you get hit again, like right away, it could be catastrophic. So, you know, I think this deal has worked out extremely well as it could. I mean, we were so happy yesterday that the MRI was completely normal, that no damage. We don't have a problem there. And for these two guys to have the kind of year they've had to lead the points and get in the chase, and we've got a lot of years left to race. I always want to be on the side of safety, and I applaud Dale for raising his hand and going in there and getting checked out.
Let's go with Nate Ryan, Joe Menzer, and then Jim Utter.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. For Dale, you said you've had other concussions in the past. We know there was the one in 2002. Have there been others in between then and now? And have there been other instances where you haven't gotten it checked out and you've just known that the symptoms are going to clear and you'll be okay once you get back in the car?
Well, I can't really recall precisely every one I've had. Me and Dr. Petty were trying to count them the other day, but you know, those were really mild, and you were fine in 48 hours. For whatever reason, you know, the wreck at Kansas was just really severe and really surprised me. You know, how tough it was to get past that, and I thought I was, you know, in the clear, but just that little, you know, just that little accident at Talladega, you know, I started having headaches and stuff immediately after the wreck, and then the next day and on into Tuesday, and I thought, man, you know, this is pretty soon after the other accident in Kansas. I should probably take this really seriously and seek some professional opinions on this. But typically they only last about 24 to 48 hours and go away, and sometimes you don't even, sometimes, to be honest, you really don't even know you have a mild concussion.
Let's go with Joe Menzer, Jim Utter, Viv Bernstein.
Joe Menzer, NASCAR.com. Dale and Rick, this concussions have been in the news quite a bit lately, particularly with the NFL. In light of that, how much of a concern is this for your long-term health, and did that kind of play into it at all?
I think that, you know, I don't think that it played into it a whole lot. When something happens to your body, if I want to, live a healthy life, so I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, and that's all I felt like I was doing here. And I think that if I give myself time to, get healed up, I can race for as long as I want to race, and that's my objective.
I think the real good news is that it has come to light with the NFL, and Dr. Petty handles the NFL guys with the Panthers too, and there's another doctor here too with him, and there are some things they can do to help it along and protect them, and he was explaining all that. So the good news is, this is kind of preventive maintenance, not to take a chance, and there's no damage, and but I think when you find out that you're okay, but if you were right away have another one, it could be a big problem. Then I think guys are going to have to pay attention to it, just like the NFL, just like I heard on Sports Center talking this morning about 2 or 3 different people that were waiting to get cleared to play this weekend. So, as Dr. Petty said, he can't drive until these things happen. So I think it's good that it's, all the safety stuff we have in the cars today. There's probably was a lot of, I can remember in my career, broken legs, broken arms, guys sitting out for different stuff, and we don't have that. I remember Terry Labonte having to sit out when he had that inner ear problem, and I think that the good news is the cars are so safe, the medical field is so advanced. If we do what they tell us, we shouldn't have any trouble.
So Jim Utter, Viv Bernstein, Doug Rice.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer for Dr. Petty. It seems like a lot of people, when they talk about concussions, make it seem to be a cut and dry thing. But in this instance, Dale Jr. talked about the test being normal, and a lot of it seems to be based on him telling you the symptoms that he's experiencing. I was just wondering, in your dealing with athletes, is it mostly listening to them tell you the effects of after an incident, or is it a combination generally of test results and them telling you what's going on?
It's a combination in some regard. If an MRI scan or CT scan is abnormal, then it's no longer a concussion. It's a hemorrhage or a contusion, or that's by definition, it's not a concussion. So some of the testing that's done, like the impact test that Dale had, those are tests that we can follow. And if he should have an injury again in the future, we can use that as a baseline, and then what we want to make sure is that baseline doesn't start to fall off, and even fall off without being tested. The period of what he has is really called a diffuse axonal injury, and it's something that does not show on scans, and we don't have a test that will show that other than symptoms and signs. Sometimes there'll be some residual signs left over, but Dale had none of those. He had his eyes did what they were supposed to do. There was just his balance tests and so forth are perfect. So it's just the one test, the one symptom that is more important than all the tests is headache. And as long as there's any headache, the brain is not healed. And until that's healed and had some time to rest, and then you provoke it again and can't make it happen again, then you feel like you're on the road to recovery.
Viv Bernstein, Doug Rice, and the gentleman in the green shirt back there. Go ahead, Viv.
Viv Bernstein, New York Times. Dale, when you look at Eric McClure, his concussion, you look at your concussions, Brad Keselowski broke his ankle. Are the cars not as safe as they need to be right now?
All the cars are fine. There's just some things that you can't control, and I don't know that you can never have a race car that's completely 100% safe. But there's been so much many advances in the last 10 or 12 years that that have made this sport incredibly safe. So I have no worries about that.
Let's go Doug Rice. Let's go gentleman in the green, and then Lee Spencer. Go ahead, Doug.
Doug Rice, PRN. Dale or Rick, was there any consideration, Dale, of having you possibly set out the rest of the season as opposed to just Charlotte and Kansas at any point in time?
No, not really. You know, I would love to race this weekend, and I feel perfectly normal and feel like I could compete if I were allowed to compete this weekend. But I think that you know, the basis of this whole deal is that I've had 2 concussions in the last 4 to 5 weeks, and you can't layer concussions. It gets extremely dangerous. So I really, you know, I think that, you know, we could easily have chosen to do that, but I'd like to get back in the car and compete as soon as I can, as soon as the doctors feel like I'm able to do that.
Gentleman in the green. Let's go Lee Spencer, David Newton.
Aaron Burns, Mooresville Weekly. Dale, what's your situation going to be like in the next 2 weeks? Are you going to be keeping the same role as a driver? Are you going to be working with Regan any at all since he's taken over the car? What's your role going to be like? Is it going to change any?
Well, I really don't know. I just, you know, I probably need to, you know, rest and relax as much as I can, allow my brain to take a break and get some healing done. But you know, Regan's doesn't need any tutoring or anything like that. He's ready to go. He's going to do a great job. I'm excited for his opportunity. He's a really good guy. Been a good friend of mine for a long time. So under the circumstances, I think this is a really neat opportunity for him. And I think that Steve and the guys will enjoy working with him.
Let's go Lee Spencer, David Newton, Bob Dillner.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. Considering the incredible season you were having, did it make it even more difficult to make this decision, you know, the first time, the second time, and is it just frustrating because of how well you and Stevie were working together?
It's frustrating. I really didn't get to make the decision. I left it in the hands of the docs, and I believe, and I'm going to do what they tell me to do. But it's pretty frustrating. I just enjoy driving cars every weekend and enjoy going. I look forward to being at the racetrack with Steve, so I'm going to really miss that.
Okay, let's go with David Newton, Bob Dillner, Jeff Gluck.
David Newton, ESPN.com. This is for Dale Jr. and to Dr. Petty, if you would address it. I know in the NFL, if you have a concussion, they make you sit out, 6 or 7 days before you go back in. NASCAR drivers have kind of hid this fact like Dale Jr. kind of did after the Kansas incident. Does there need to be more stringent rules or something that would prevent drivers from being on the track with concussions?
We've patterned our rules after the NFL to a degree. We would do the same procedure about giving them 5 or 6 days without a headache and then doing provocative tests. I don't think that, so far as I know, they're not allowed to go back any earlier than some of the NFL guys are allowed to go back.
Let's go Bob Dillner, Jeff Gluck, and then Al Pierce.
Bob Dillner from Speed. Dale Jr., one question for you. I know you said you have to rest up a little bit, but will you come to the race this weekend to support the team? And for Steve Letarte, what have you have to do to the car to prepare for Regan Smith to race this weekend?
Yeah, I don't have any plans of being here this weekend. I think that I'd be more of a distraction to the team and their efforts in the race. I think they got a good opportunity to have a good run this weekend, and I feel like that, you know, to minimize the distraction would help them out.
As far as preparing for the car for Regan, there's not a whole lot to do. He's been at the shop early this morning just to sit in his seat versus Jimmy's. We have a lot of options at the company, and he found the one that fits him the best, so we'll probably change the seat here, maybe the pedals, just adjust things to his driving style. He probably have to get on the racetrack to really fine-tune everything exactly like he wants it, but they're reasonably close to the same size, so it shouldn't be much of a problem at all.
Let's go Jeff Gluck, Al Pierce, Randy Kovitz. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Gluck from SBNation.com. This is for Steve. Steve, right here, sorry. When this happened at the tire test, it sounds like there wasn't a lot of medical staff, or he didn't go to a care center. Is that standard for these tire tests, and is that something that you think should be changed, or how does that usually work?
There was a medical staff there. He was seen in the ambulance after his accident. I think he was seen there. As far as the care center, what should be standard, I kind of leave that to the experts above me. I stick with crew chiefing and race cars, and I don't know if I'm really the guy that can answer that question. I think injuries are complicated, and I think every situation can be different. We test all over the country, whether it's a tire test or whether we're by ourselves at a straight line test or Nashville. Any time a car's on track, there's inherent risk of injury. So I don't know if there's any real. I wish it would be a cut and dry answer, but I don't really think there is a cut and dry answer.
Let's go Al Pierce, Randy Kovitz, and then we'll go to Seth Livingstone.
Yeah, for Rick, Al Pierce from Auto Week. Rick, can you give us a precise, as best you can remember, timeline on when the decision was made yesterday, what time of day, when did you contact Regan? Kind of give us not a minute by minute, but maybe an hour by hour progress of how all this came about.
Let's see. Dale went in to have I talked to Dr. Petty Tuesday night. Dale had an examination Tuesday. Wednesday he had a MRI. I went down, Stevie and Kelly, to his office and saw the MRI, and it was normal. And at that point, Dr. Petty had already said to me that morning, that he was not going to clear Dale to drive. And but we were wanting to know if there was any damage or injury. Then because Kelly has been working with Regan and Junior likes him, I called James Finch last night about 10 o'clock and asked him could we use Regan, and he agreed, and that's told Stevie last night, and then 8 o'clock so this morning he called Regan, and we told him we had it cleared with James, and that's where we are right now.
Randy Kovitz, Seth Livingstone, Tom Jensen. Go ahead, Randy.
Hi, Dale, Randy Kovitz, Kansas City Star. I was there when you went into the corner. Can you just talk about that track and the rebanking of it, and is it safe, and what should we look for next weekend?
I think it'll be a great race. I think they did an awesome job on the track. I had a lot of fun out there while we were testing up until the accident. I think it's just, they did a good job in turn 1 and 2, sort of changing the banking of the track, and 3 and 4 seems relatively the same as it was before, but I really think it's going to be a great racetrack. It was a good track beforehand, but I think they improved it. You're not blaming the track? Absolutely not.
Seth Livingstone, Tom Jensen, David Caravello. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, for Rick and Steve, Seth Livingstone from NASCAR.com. Just going back to the Regan Smith decision, I'm sure you had other choices. Why Regan, and what might be the future for him in your organization?
Well, I think we've been talking about running him in the nationwide car for a championship. So he's a good driver, and again, Dale likes him, and we're familiar with him, and so that was, we knew he was going to be in James's car, and that was it just seemed to fit about the same size.
Yeah, I don't know if I really add. Mr. Hendrick makes those decisions, but I agree that Regan's a great guy. I think he has a great attitude. He seems to be a remarkable talent. He's part of the Chevrolet family, which obviously helps that when he comes and drives our car. And we were just looking for someone that could come in and do a great job, and we feel he can. And the fact that Dale believes in him so much really made the decision even that much easier.
I'm going to take 2 more. We got Tom Jensen, and then we'll finish with David Caravello.
Hi, Dale. Tom Jensen, Speed.com. What are your emotions right now? We've seen drivers on the verge of tears when they've had to give up their cars in mid-race and some very emotional feelings. How are you coping with that?
Yeah, I'm really gonna feel pretty odd not being in the car. I'm anxious, real anxious, just to get back into the car and get back to, I think you learn not to take things for granted, and I just hate that this has caused such a fuss.
Finish up, David Caravello, final question.
David Caravello, NASCAR.com. Dr. Petty, when it comes to concussions, first of all, are you more susceptible to them going forward when you get one? And then I'll ask you another one right after that. Are you more susceptible to them once you get one?
Yes.
Secondly, how much of diagnosing all this hinges on individual admission?
90% of concussion probably depends on individual information. I mean, the headache, the people around you might notice that you're different, but by and large, it's a patient's, the history that the patient gives is the thing that tells you that they've had a concussion. A concussion can be seeing stars. A concussion can be just being addled for a minute. Anytime the brain's not doing what it's supposed to do after an acceleration or deceleration, that's a concussion.